Okay, so till next class, we had studied about variable resistors, and from this class, we will start a little bit more of hardware theory with servo motors. Servo motors are small motors, which are, I mean, they're not always small, but most of the time they're small motors which we use in electronic circuits, and they have excellent position control. Position control means, see, a motor has to rotate. Now there are two things. Position control means that you can precisely control the amount by which you want the motor to turn or rotate. For example, servo motors rotate provide you rotation from 0 degree to 180 degrees. So you have excellent control. If you want to rotate at 75 degree, you can do that easily. I mean, more precisely. Okay, and there are some motors which provide good speed control. So they are especially used, for example, if you're making a robot and you need, you need you have to put vehicles. I mean, sorry, you're making a robot vehicle and you have to put wheels on that. So there you use DC motors which have good servo control, speed control, because there you're not much interested in position, but more interested in speed. So position control is very good because of these motors work on negative feedback. Those of you who will go in control systems and all, they'll read about it. No need to go in much detail, but just remember that we use them for very good position control. Now a servo motor has three terminals basically: yellow, red and black. Okay, in fact most of the devices where you find three or four terminals, you find two are R and B, so there's no secret there that they are for VCC, that is power positive, and this is for ground. Okay, and this Y, yellow, this is the control pin. So from this pin, we control how much the servo motor needs to turn. So you can know that the third color is the control pin. And yeah, we get a 180-degree range on servo motors. Now, when we have to use servo motors, for example, if you're using a sensor which has to be turned and dug into the soil, so for that kind of application, you can use a servo motor. But your range should be within 180 degrees. Now, that the basic way by which a servo motor control pin works is by using a PWM signal. Okay, so we'll discuss that in a bit detail now. And apart from that, there are some libraries also available on Arduino which you can use, servo libraries. I mean, you have to download them, of course, first, and with which you can just write commands like servo1 dot write 0, so it will get to 0 degree angle, or servo1 dot write um, 77, so it will go to 77 degree, not degree, of course, 77. So there are some functions like that, but we'll try to learn it from the basic, how to program it. So we'll try to create our own function, and that, but for that, just remember that for the control pin we enter a PWM signal. Okay, which, if you remember, is like this. Now this is, see, the total duration of, I mean, of one cycle is roughly around 20 milliseconds, and the important thing is this pulse width. This is called pulse width of one pulse. So depending on this pulse width of your input signal, your servo motor turns to different angles. Okay, if your pulse width is around 0.6 milliseconds, so then the servo motor is at 0 degrees. Okay, and if it is around I think 2.4 milliseconds, then it turns to 180 degrees. So from here you can get an idea of the calibration that we'll be using. Okay, you can see that there is a difference of, okay, let's convert it to microseconds. So it is 600 microseconds, and this is 2400 microseconds. So there's a difference of how much? 1800 here, and there's a difference of 180 degrees here. So from simple mathematics, for 180 degrees there is a difference of 1800 microseconds. So for 1 degrees there is a difference of 10 microseconds. So for example, if I have to turn the servo motor at 50 degrees, so I have to give it a pulse width of how much? 500 microseconds. Okay, but not exactly 500 microseconds, because I have to add 600 to this, right? Because for 0 degree we have 600 microseconds. So 500 plus 600 equals to 1100 microseconds. So if you give a pulse PWM signal of pulse width 1100 microseconds, your servo motor will turn to 50 degrees. I hope that is clear. Now we'll see at how it can be done. So here you can clearly see there is servo motors, the connections. Of course, for current limitation, we put a resistor, and apart from that, these are the connections. This is your PWM analog output pin. Okay. Now let us have a look at the program. Yeah, this is the program. No need to get afraid. It's not a complicated program. It's a simple. The only thing here is that we have created our own function called servo pulse. You can see here void servo pulse. Okay. To this function, if you just tell it the pin number at which you have attached the control pin and the angle at which you want to turn the servo motor, it just turns the servo motor. It sends a PWM signal on that pin so that the servo motor turns at this angle. Okay. Now we'll just for the, if you have any complication understanding for 2 minutes, just forget that there is a function that you have built. Just forget these 4 lines. Just assume that there is an inbuilt function like that. Okay. Now what are we doing? Servo pin 2. Servo pin is connected to digital pin 2, which is PWM enabled. Okay. And then of course there are variables. Pin mode servo pin output. Okay. Do we need to do this? Is it compulsory to do this? No, because for analog output and input, we don't need to set up them. But even if you do, it's not an error. Okay. Now directly come to void loop. So void loop mein what we do is we create a for loop for my angle varying from 10 to 170 degrees. Okay. My angle plus plus, and for every angle value, we just send that angle value to the servo pulse function. That servo pulse, we call that function and we say that servo pulse. This is the pin number. Servo pin is the pin number, and just set it to my angle. And when the control comes back, we give a delay of 20 milliseconds. Okay. Then as it happens, your servo motor will change from 10 degree to 170 degree. Slowly it will move. Then we put another for function for loop for 170 to 10, and this brings the servo motor back to 10 degree. Now let's see how the servo pulse function is working. It's quite simple. See, from the formula that we just saw, what is important is to calculate how much pulse width needs to be produced for that particular angle. Okay. So you just saw that for every 1 degree, 10 times pulse width is required, starting from 600. So my angle into 10 plus 600 gives you the pulse width. Yeah, we need the pin mode here because we are not doing analog outputs. That was my mistake. We are not doing analog output. We are just producing a PWM signal. So it is a digital pin here, and we are just digitally writing the servo pin high, and we are giving a delay in microseconds equal to our pulse width. See, these calculations we have done in microseconds. So we just give a delay here for that many microseconds, and then what do we do? We set the digital pin to low. So what happens is when this statement is executed, the digital pin is turned high, then it remains high for these many microseconds. For example, if it is 800 microseconds, for 800 microseconds it remains high, and then when this statement gets executed, it becomes slow. Okay. And then the control comes back to the calling function. So you have given a pulse width of 800 microseconds, so accordingly your servo motor turns to the specific angle. Okay. I hope it is clear. We are just using a digital pin. We are not using a PWM enabled pin, and I repeat it. I hope this part is clear to everybody. Okay, if anybody has a doubt, they can ask now. I will just take a bird's eye view of some components that we'll be using here. Okay, before we jump to the Arduino projects exactly. Digital write high and low, we are setting it to 1 and 0, Anirudh. It's a digital pin. It knows only two states, high and low. So when you put it high, basically the output is high, high voltage. And when you put it low, basically the output is connected to ground. So there's a 0 voltage. Okay, it's a digital pin, binary, yes. Okay, now we'll learn about some components. First is resistance. See, we all know that resistance is a current limiting device. Okay, most of the times we use it either to protect the Arduino board, or to protect the our external components. For example, you are connecting something to this pin, okay, some component. Now, if this component is can draw more current than this pin can supply, then you have a high risk of frying up your Arduino board. Or if this component requires much less current, like an LED, and this pin will supply more current, then this component will be dead. So to avoid both circumstances, we put a resistance here to limit the current. That is one of the most basic purposes due to which we use a resistor. Now, I hope you guys remember, but still, registers are mostly color coded. You can see the color bands here. Mostly four color bands are there, and these tell you the value of the register. They are used for calculating the register value. So I'll just tell you. As you can see, there's a first color band, second color band, third, and there's a golden one here. So this first one tells the first digit. The second one tells the second digit. The third one tells the power of 10. For example, if it is red. BBR, so it is 10 to the power 3, and this tells the tolerance. Tolerance basically, for example, if it is 5%, so gold has 5% tolerance, so it means that the value that you get from here, it has an accuracy of plus minus 4%. Means it can vary for 5% of the value. So this is the poem. Baby Roy of Great Britain has a very good wife, and the digits correspond to that. For example, if you have a resistor who has yellow, violet, orange, brown. So yellow, as you can see, corresponds to what? 4, and violet to 7, and orange to 3. So it becomes like this: 47 into 10 to the power 3, and brown has a tolerance of 1%. So basically the resistor value is this much in ohms, okay, or 47 kilo ohms. So it's a 47 kilo ohm resistor. Apart from this, yes, in condition whether it has to be parallel or series. Yes, Ron, of course, we will do the correct, whenever you are connecting an equipment, we do a rough calculation of how much resistance it should be at least. And if you don't find that much resistance, you go for the next higher resistance. Okay, I'll show you one calculation. I'll show you one calculation if you want, don't worry. It's just like, you have, see, it's just, I'll show you, don't worry. Let's just finish this first. So yeah, this is of course a way to calculate the resistance, but if you are in an exam and in a lab exam and you don't remember the poem or you don't remember this technique, you will forget this with time maybe. So you can simply connect a multimeter. Okay, you can connect the terminals to a multimeter, and you can read the resistance directly from the multimeter. Even if you don't have that, maybe your multimeter is very simple or old and doesn't have resistance functionality, so just give a voltage and put an ammeter and measure the current and divide it to know the resistor values. Sometimes it can come handy in exams, so just for that purpose I told you. So multimeters are devices which are used for measuring voltage, current, power, resistance. Okay, and there's some other functionalities also, AC power, DC power, and all that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Mostly you will see a yellow colored multimeter, the cheapest version. You can get it 250 bucks. Okay, so you have the dial, and in laboratories, depending upon your college, you might have a 50-year-old one, which you'll find in MSRIT, or you can have more new ones in power electronics labs, which have high functionality. Okay, so depending upon which type of multimeter you have, you learn how to use it. But mostly they are a general perspective is that they are knobs, and you can turn the knob at what quantity you want to measure. Scale is quite the same, especially in the analog one. If you don't have a digital one, I mean. So if you turn it at voltage, so on that scale only you can read voltage, current, power, resistance, different depending upon what you want to read. Okay, apart from that, we'll come to LEDs. I hope you know, but still LEDs are light emitting diodes. They are highly power efficient. That is why we have LED lights nowadays, which save a lot of power, give a lot of light as well. And technically speaking, they are diodes. Diodes are simple electronic devices which allow current to flow only in one direction. Okay, you will study about them in basic electronics if you haven't. So a diode, if you look at it, it looks like this. There is a longer leg and there is a shorter leg. Longer leg is positive, shorter leg is negative. Also towards the longer leg, there is a cut in the filament. Now I used to think that if there is already a way to know the longer by longer leg and shorter leg, the anode and the cathode, then why are they giving a cut in the filament? Then once I realized that one person had broken this leg. Now you can get confused which one is the longer and which one is the shorter leg. Then you can use this filament to find out which is the cathode and which is the anode. Okay, this is another problem which you might encounter sometime. Okay, yeah. Now how to calculate the resistance value? I think Rohan had some doubt. I'll just give you a very simple example. For example, we have connected an LED here. This is a symbol for an LED. This is the positive leg. This is a negative leg. Okay, and I have to limit the current, so I have to connect a resistor here. Now the power supply voltage source is of Vs, and if you already studied about LED, then you will know that an LED which is connected in forward bias has a fixed forward voltage drop. Okay, depending upon the LED, it can vary from 0.7 volts to 1.7 volts. Okay, see, LEDs allow current only in one direction. This means that it allows current only in this direction. If you connect the same LED like this, it won't allow the current to flow. Okay, that's the basic meaning of a diode. Now there is some current. Now for calculating the R value, I think it's basic Kirchhoff's law. So it's Vs minus Vf divided by I, right? I is the current that we want to flow. So Vf value is, I told you already, for example, for a red LED, I think it is around 1.7 volt. Vs, if you're giving from the Arduino, it might be 5 volt. If you're giving from a digital pin directly, and current is optimal current. So optimal current for the LED is around 10 milliamps, say, as far as I remember. So depending upon this, you can calculate the value of R. Now let's say I'm not calculating it. Let's say it comes to 200 ohms. So in case you're not able to find a 200 ohm resistor at that point, you should use a greater resistor, 220 ohm, 330 ohm, something like that. So I hope it makes the objective very much clear, how to use the resistance, calculate resistance values whenever you have to limit current. Instead of this LED, there can be a motor, anything else. So you can use the LED accordingly. Just look at the pin that you are using to connect. What is the current limitation and what is the current limitation of the device? Okay. I hope it is clear. Okay, see, breadboards, why we use whenever you're making a circuit, for example, the previous circuit, the one here. Okay, there are connections to be made here. Now the one way to do the connections is to solder. You have a soldering gun and you solder it, and then your LED is permanently fixed with those wires, and then you have to cut it or melt it again to remove those LEDs. Okay, but when we are doing some projects or experiments, so we don't want to always solder it. So breadboard gives us that flexibility, that even without soldering you can make connections easily. So it's like yeah, you don't need to solder and remove the connections. I'll show you a breadboard to make it more clear. Yeah, this is how a typical breadboard looks like. There are small ones also, no problem. Now if you want to know how to make the connections, one way is you flip the breadboard. There will be a maybe a sticker or something on the rear part. Just move that and you can see how they are shorted. But I'll tell you how they are shorted. 1 2 3 4 5. Yeah, so you see these 5 columns are horizontally shorted. What does that mean? I'll tell you. See, all these pins are shorted. Means, for example, if you put a pin of the if you put a jumper wire, if you take a jumper wire from the digital pin 13 of the Arduino here, and then if you put a positive and a leg of the LED here, and then if you put the ground here, I mean the negative leg, and right now I'm not putting the resistor, but you make sure you put it, and then you take it to the ground of Arduino. So this makes a connection automatically, okay, because these pins are vertically connected. So you see these are vertically connected. So this means that this and this get shorted automatically as soon as you insert a jumper wire there. Similarly, since this line is horizontally connected, so these two pins get connected, but this line is not connected with this one. Similarly, these are connected and then these are connected. So I hope it is clear. This is how you make connections using a breadboard. We'll see more of it when you start with the project. Does anyone have a question? Yes, it is internally connected, Ishan. Yes, it is internally connected. Internally kya matlab, it is connected only, it's just that you cannot see from here. There might be a double-sided tape on the rear side. If you just remove it, you will see the connections. Now we'll start with Arduino projects. Okay. Now for discussing these projects here in real time, we have assimilated them beautifully in a software called Tinkercad. From there, you can not just see the hardware as well, the connections, the code, how they are getting implemented. We can twitch them and see how we change them. Okay. So we expect that it should be an almost as good an experience as it would have been if we were doing it offline. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so the first project that we'll do is an LED flasher. Okay, simple project, blinking LED, the universal starter. If you go there, there's an hyperlink. Okay. So guys, you can see here, this is a simulated circuit. You can see the positive leg is connected via a resistor to the digital pin 13. Okay, and as you already know, the digital pin 13 is already connected to an inbuilt LED, which is here. Okay, and the negative leg you can see is connected to the ground pin of the Arduino. So what we do, we switch on the digital pin 13, we give it a delay, and then we switch it off. So with this LED should flash, and since this pin is also connected to an inbuilt LED through an inbuilt resistor, so this LED will also flash. Okay, let's look at the code first. See, this is the code, Intel LED pin 13. I think it's pretty simple, but still let's go through it. And even if some of you feel that it's simple, please pay attention. Since it is a digital pin, so we have to specify that we have to specify the pin mode. Okay, apart from that, we write it high. Okay, if somebody had a doubt in high and low, I hope it is clear, it will be clear from this experiment. Then we give a delay of 1000 milliseconds, that is 1 second. Then we turn it low, and then we again give a delay. Okay, we'll just simulate it. As you can see, the LED is blinking. The power is coming through the USB cable that has been connected. Okay, now for example, if we pick it up from there and we put it at 12. Okay, now all we have to do change in the code is to make it pin number 12, and again it will work. But you can see the internal LED is not blinking right now because that LED is connected only to pin number 13. Okay, so that will blink if you make it 13. Can you see this LED here? It's blinking, but our LED is not blinking. I hope it's quite clear, but in case somebody wants, they can change the delay here. They can make it 3000 and you can try it. It's a pretty interesting simulation software. Okay, sorry, we have connected to 12. Yeah. Now it remains on for 3 seconds. Sometimes what people do mistake in the beginning is they don't give this delay. Okay. They think that, okay, we have given a delay here and then we have turned it low, then it should work. But what will happen? It will remain high because it's actually turning low for a split second, fraction of a second, and you can't see it. This is some people, by mistake they make this mistake. Okay, I hope this is clear. If anybody has to ask something regarding the simulation or anything in general, they can ask it now. Is there a debugger for the Arduino IDE? Debugger, you mean there's always a compiler which can tell you what the bugs are, but debugging is mostly done by you. They can maybe drop a hint or two, but you are the debugger for any IDE. Where will we get this link of project? Ishan, you have the third book. I hope you have the third book. If you don't have it, just download it from the Electrovert website. And in that third book, if you go to the page number 79, so the title of every project there, we have explained the project as well. Apart from that, the title of the project is a hyperlink which will directly take you to Tinkercad. Okay. Now you can't twitch the standard projects, but you can always sign in. You can copy that project in your own profile, and then you can do whatever you want. Okay, I hope LED flasher project is quite clear. See, the explanation is quite there, but I hope we have discussed it. Now we'll go to the next project, which is a blinking LED wave, as if I'm not wrong. So what we'll do here is, see, basically we have 5 LEDs and we have to create a wave passing through them. Okay, you must have seen these kind of waves in, depending upon where you go. There are some shops also which have neon lights somewhat similar to this. There are some series lights on Diwali which work like this, and also there are some bar lights which work like this. So depending upon your experience range, you must have experienced it somewhere. So this is pretty much the look of the circuit. Let's see it here. It looks much better now. Here, guys, when you go through the book and when we have discussed it, I like you that when I recommend that you that you see a project and you try to write the code on your own. Okay, that will help you, and then when you see the code, it will help you much more. So I'll just show you what this project is doing actually. Okay, you see a wave of LEDs lights. Now basically what we have to do in this program, acha, see, there are through 5 different resistors. These are connected to different digital pins. Okay, different digital pins because we need to control them differently. I mean, separately, independently. For example, in your room, you have 3 lights, one fan, one computer. So you have different switches for them. If you have one switch, then you can only turn all of them on or all of them off. But we don't want that. But their ground can be common. Okay. So all of them, as you can see, you can also observe the breadboard connections here. Okay. See, all the negatives are coming in this one vertical column, which is shorted, as you know, in a breadboard. But this vertical column is not shorted to this vertical column. So we have to put a separate jumper wire here. Okay. Since there was no space in this column, of course. And now this entire column is shorted because of this single jumper wire. Okay. Now we have put one ground pin here, and that has gone to the ground of the Arduino board. So I hope this connection is clear. Now see, basically what we are doing is we are switching on one LED, we are giving a delay, then we are switching it off, then we are switching on the next LED, then we are giving it a delay, and this goes on. Okay, so let's see, have a look at the code. Of course, in setup we set up all the pins from 2 to 6 as output. Now for a is equal to 2, a is less than 7, a plus plus. Digital write a high, we give a delay d, which is here for 100 milliseconds. You can increase it, decrease it. Then we turn it off, and then we again give a delay. And since in the next loop a turns to 3, so now as you can see in the write function, digital write function, the next pin will turn on. So this will continue, and then again when you go into the next version of this void loop, again a will start from 2. I'll also show you one thing. This thing that we have done here with a for loop, the same thing could have been done in a long way in this way also. See, you go in void loop, you turn on digital pin 2, you give a delay, then you turn it off, then you turn on digital pin 3, then you give a delay, then you turn it off. And similarly, you write for every pin. But by writing a for loop, we have simply made it quite short. Okay, I mean, you can make it quite short, it's not a big deal. Just to, the different methods have been given just to make you understand how we can do more efficient programming. That's it. Now here, even if you remove this delay, it won't cause a problem. Apart from, of course, making the process a bit faster, because that LED will definitely switch off due to this statement here. Okay. Now delay you can increase from here. So that is why we give an independent variable here instead of writing it everywhere. So at one place you are storing the delay. If you change it there, everywhere it gets changed. So you don't have to change it at 10 places. You can only change it in one place. That is one way of coding. I hope it is clear. If anybody has a doubt, guys, please ask. This is a pretty good simulator. You can choose components. You can make your own projects. Now coming to the next project, it is a fading LED. Can we even do the alternate LEDs to light? Yes. In the for loop, Ishan has a question. Mm, in the LED for loop, if you just do instead of a plus plus, if you do a is equal to a plus 2, it will do alternate LEDs. First, third, fourth, second, fifth. First, third, fourth. That's not exactly alternate. See, instead of this a plus plus here, if you write a is equal to a plus 2, right? But what the problem is, after 2 it will go to 4, it will go to 6. It should work. Do you see the alternate LEDs are lighting up? See, fading LED means what? An LED which can dim up and then brighten up slowly, or it, if you're doing mindfulness exercises, you might have seen fading screens. And this is also called breathing, because breathing also happens that way. So for that, we simply need an analog signal. We cannot do do it with a digital signal, because digital signal will either turn on the LED or turn it off. So we need an analog signal. Basically, we need a PWM signal. It is digital only, but the pulse width is modulated. So let's look at that project. Okay, I hope you remember PWM, but in case you don't, PWM is a signal which has highs and lows, and depending upon how much time you are taking for high, which is also called pulse width, the average voltage supplied by the PWM or the average current supplied by the PWM changes. Okay, so when you change the average voltage, now if the average voltage is from 4, you bring it to 2, then obviously the brightness of the LED will become half, right? That is what we are going to do here. Okay, we have already discussed about PWM pins. This is a simple LED, but it is connected to the PWM pin, as you can see. Okay, and let's look at the code. Now see, pin number 3 we are using for analog output. So basically it's not compulsory to give this pin mode at all. You can give it, it's optional. You can remove it as well. Okay, I'm removing it right now. Then when you go in the loop, you know that PWM output is an 8-bit revolution, right? So we vary the variable from 0 to 256, less than 256, of course. Then we analog write on the pin the value of A. We of course give a delay so that the dimming and the brightening has a certain speed, and with the delay value you can control that speed. Okay, and then we just dim it back to 0, and yeah, we give a delay of 200. We just look at it once. Now there are 2-3 things that need to be observed here. First thing was, of course, that pin mode was not necessary. You can keep it as well, no problem. Okay, to make this delay increase, of course, that is not an issue. Coming to one point, that what will happen, see, when we are doing analog write, you can see that we have taken less than 256. What happens in analog values when you go to 256? It is treated as 0. Okay, basically the reason is that if you go to the basic reason, 255 is, so basically for 256 there is one more byte which comes, so it becomes like this: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. That is correct. So the last 8 bits, they give 0. So what happens basically in analog, right? If you are using 256, from 256 it again starts from 0. So 257 is treated as 1. Okay, so what all I'm saying is that if you're using analog directly, and if you give value as 256, for example, let's see it. It will be more clear. Let me connect it to pin number 5. Okay, analog write pin number 5 comma 256. Okay, now let's see what happens. See, the LED is not blinking, lighted up. But if I just make it double of 255, what is that? 510, 510. See, it's on. So are you seeing? Can you see? After every 8 bits, if you give values greater than 256, then it gets repeated. Okay, but that's not the case with digital pins. What I mean to say here is, assume that by mistake you connected it to a pin which is not a PWM pin. Okay, can you see here? It's not a PWM pin. What I'm doing here is, let's remove this part. Okay, let's make it 4. Let's make it 4. Now just see what will happen. It's not a PWM pin, but still I'm using analog write. It will not give any error. In fact, it's working also. But can you see what is happening? It's not dimming and brightening. It's just switching on and switching off. Now what is exactly happening is, when you give an analog value to a non-PWM digital pin, 256 are the total values, right? So from 128 onwards, it's treated as a high, and for less than 128 it's treated as a low. And when we say greater than 128, any value, even if you give 256, 2560, everything is treated as a high. Okay, and less than 128 is treated as a low. So when the value is still 127, the bulb is off. As soon as it reaches 128 and higher, it is on. That's what is happening. We can even see that happening if we just do one thing. Let's connect it to pin number 7, and let's write analog write 7 comma 129. Okay, and you see the bulb is permanently on. I hope this is clear. So the value that we give in analog write, its way, its behavior depends upon the pin. If it is a PWM pin, fine, it works normally. If it is a non-PWM pin, it works, the pin takes it as a digital input itself. So after 128, everything including 128 is taken as a high. I hope this is clear to everyone. If anybody has a doubt, please ask. Okay, so the next project is regarding traffics. A simple traffic light controller. Just as a reminder, because in India we don't pay that much attention to traffic lights. So a traffic light is first red, then before it turns green, just so that you start your engine, which you have already kept started by the way, it turns yellow as well. Then both of them switch off and they turn green. And after that, when it has again to go back to red, it first turns yellow and then it goes back to red. That is the pattern. I will try to implement that using what we have learned till now. Let's zoom in a little bit. I really like the zooming feature here. There's so much relaxation for the eyes. Okay, as you can see, the positive end of every LED has been connected to different pins and the negative end to one ground. Also, you can see compared to the previous project, here we have connected the resistor to the negative legs, basically the cathodes. So it is just to first tell you, which you already know, of course, that in series you can either connect the resistor before the LED or after the LED. It doesn't matter, but you have to connect the resistor. Okay. As far as I remember, I have used blue LEDs without resistors, but whenever I used red LEDs without resistors, poof, they're gone. Okay. Okay. Let's see the code. We'll just go through a code. The code, it's basically an implementation of the things which you have learned. Okay. Pin mode setup is this part. Output, no problem there. Okay. Now let's go to the loop part. Okay, so we first set the red pin high, then we give a delay. LED delay is already specified. If you can change it from the variable here. Now we turn the yellow pin high, then we give a delay, which is less, of course. Then we turn the green pin high, and without any delay, we turn the red and the yellow ones low. Okay, so this will happen almost instantly. You won't feel a lag there. Okay, and then a delay, then the yellow pin is turned high and the green pin is turned low, then a delay, and then the yellow pin is turned low. See this last line, sometimes what we do is in beginning, you can make these kind of mistakes. You just miss this last line when you don't write it, so then you get a different kind of functionality. We'll see what we get, but let's first see the functioning right now. I hope this is clear. If it's not, I'll zoom in a little bit more. So this is the functionality. Now what do you do by mistake in case you don't write this last line? Okay, you forget to turn off the yellow. So what will happen? Simply that yellow will still remain on, and you might be wondering why it is happening, why it is not working. So this is the reason. But before closing the void loop, you must bring the entire program at the same status, so that after that line, when your control goes back to the first line, it is a seamless process. So it works perfectly. Right now it's not working perfectly. Now the next project is LED chase effect. So we are going to connect a string of LEDs. So let's see what's happening here. Yeah, as you can see, this is the project which we discussed a little bit. That instead of starting from the beginning, it should just come back, like bouncing from the between the walls. So we have to do this here. Of course, you can connect any number of LEDs, and as you can see, the resistors have been this time connected to the anodes, and yeah, the cathodes don't have the resistors. Does anybody think, I just got an idea that if we connected the resistor to the negative terminal, we could only do with one, because they're connected in parallel, and at one time we are only using one LED. So we could have done with one resistor on the negative terminal, don't you think? Anyways, we might do that improvisation. Okay, see here we are, just for the sake of explanation, we are using an array. Okay, of course you can use a loop if you want. So here we have made an array which contains all the pin numbers from 4 to 13. Okay. Then there is a delay, of course, that is not an issue. Direction, I'll tell you about this direction later. Okay. Okay, and here we are also demonstrating you use of another function which we have already discussed, millis. Millis actually is I think that time also I told you, and that millis is used for measuring the current time execution, the time of the controller, and with this we actually try to gauge the time difference between different this execution time differences. I mean, if a loop, the beginning of the loop and the end of the loop, so you know how much time is being taken in executing this loop. Okay, so here we are implementing this in a way that we want to, if you turn on the LED, okay, you have to check that if a certain time has passed after it's turning on, then it should get turned off, and then the another one should be turned on. It's like that. Okay, and that certain time is defined by LED delay. Of course, we could have written it in directly delay, and okay, I'll show it to you. Don't worry. If I tell everything right now, you'll get confused. Just remember, just try to observe how we are using it. Okay. See, first of all, in void setup, instead of writing 10 statements, we write a for loop for 0 to 10. Okay. These are index numbers for this array. Okay. And then within this for loop, we write pin mode LED pin X output. So X varies from 0 to 10. So this is 0 and 0 to 9. So this is ninth one. So all of them are set to output. Okay. And change time is a variable which stores the current time in millis. Okay. When the control comes to this time, this place, in milliseconds, it just starts the counter. Okay. Now in void loop, okay, this is a function that we have created. Okay, change LED. Let's look at it here. Now if now see, whenever this is executed, this means now the current timing. So when it goes into from this statement going in this statement, some milliseconds would have passed. After those many milliseconds, and see, this millisecond is actually the time from the starting of the execution. Okay, if you remember, millis gives the time that has elapsed in milliseconds from the time the program execution started. So from here to here, there must have passed some more milliseconds. So that milliseconds minus change time. Change time is this last stored milliseconds. If this is greater than LED delay, which is 200 milliseconds, then we change the LED. Change LED is a function which simply changes the LED, which is lighting up. Okay, we look at this function, and after that we come back and we store the millis time and change time again. We update this variable actually. Now let's look at what this function is doing. Okay, first of all, what it does is, when this for loop, it switches off all the LEDs. Okay, now what it does is digital write LED pin current LED. So what is the current LED value? Current LED initial value, I guess it was 0. Yeah, initial value was 0. So LED pin matrix may say current LED position, that is 0th position, is the fourth one, right? So fourth pin is selected, and it is it is put to high. The fourth pin is selected and it is put to high. Then current LED variable, which actually stores which LED is currently lighting up or which has to be lighted up, plus equals to direction. Now direction was 1, right? So now current LED value will become +1. So from 4 it will become 4 plus 1 5, right? Now just forget these two lines right now. This is executed, this change LED is executed. Now the control after this statement, what happens? See, for example, the first value of current LED was 0. So this LED pin, the fourth LED was switched on. Then current LED value was upgraded to 1. This loop ends and it goes back to here. Okay. Now change time is stored in millis. Now after this LED, now this change time is stored in millis. Now this loop is again executed. Now if millis is minus change time is greater than LED delay, which is 200 milliseconds, Now, this means what? This condition of if will only become true after 200 milliseconds. So, for 200 milliseconds, this fourth pin LED, this will remain on. Okay. As soon as 200 milliseconds have passed, again change LED function will be called. Now, what will happen? First of all, instantly it turns off all the LEDs. Then current LED value has been changed to 1. So LED pin 1. So LED pin 1 has number 5. So the fifth LED is set to high. Okay. And then current LED is upgraded to 1 plus 1, 2. Now see, this continues 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Because there are total 9 indices in this array. Okay. The array has 10 variables. So the ninth value is the last value. If current LED is equal to 9, direction should be changed to -1. Why? Because from there, we want it to come back. So now 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. If it turns 0, then we want the direction to be changed to +1. Some of you might be thinking that it is a very cumbersome way of doing it. We could have done it simply by using a for loop, as we discussed at that time, a reverse decrement for loop. Yes, this has been put only to emphasize to you that we can use functions first of all, and other than that, the use of the millis function. Okay, instead of this millis function, uh, you could have just done what? Because we could have just put an LED delay, right? For example, if I remove this statement and I remove this statement as well, and I just put a delay of, that would also work, don't you think? Because the number will be changed, again it will be called, new LED will be called, and this should also work. Let's see. Acha, acha. See, I made an error there. See, this is also working in the same way. So basically only millis function was demonstrated there. You could have directly given a delay. But still, is the working of the entire program clear to everyone? We'll move to the next one then. The next project uses a potentiometer to control the brightness of an LED. The theory of using a potentiometer we have already discussed in last week, last weekend. But here we'll see its implementation into three programs, into three projects. Yeah. Basically, what we did there, controlling the LED brightness from the program. You remember, I think second or third program, fading LED or breathing LED. So there, if you wanted to change the rate at which the LED is brightening up or something, you have to go in the program and do it. But assume that the person who is using your device is not a programmer. Okay, so he can't do that. So you need to give a user-friendly hardware way of doing the same thing. So that is what we'll do here. The potentiometer basically serves as a hardware mechanism of interacting with your program. Okay, so any layman can also use it. Now what's happening here is basically we are controlling the brightness of the LED using the potentiometer. Okay, if you make it high, then it becomes brighter, and if you make it low, then it becomes dimmer. Okay, now let's see the connections. If you remember, the potentiometer has three wires. Of course, two are between V and ground, 5 volt and ground, and the third wire, which actually moves with the knob, which changes the output voltage of the potentiometer, that is connected for analog input. Okay, and if you remember, analog input is a 10-bit resolution, so we'll get the value, we'll map it for 8-bit resolution, and we will send that value to this point. Okay, on the analog output pin, PWM pin 9. Okay, and which will control this LED. Yes, exactly. Potentiometer is there in the fan simulator. Yeah, works like a fan simulator. Yeah, it. I hope you see. This is what it looks like. You see, you see three terminals here, and this is the knob. You just turn the knob, but they have different sizes. You know, in if you're going in high voltage lab, you will find high big potentiometers. But in electronics, you know, they are simple ones. I mean, the small ones. Let's have a look at the code. Okay. So if you remember the time we were doing this in theory, what we did for mapping was we simply took the value of potentiometer, I mean the 10-bit value, we divided by 4 because 1024 just divided by 4 to get it in 256. Okay, but just to do it more precisely and to demonstrate a new function to you, we use a map function here. So first we void setup. Now, do we need these two setups? We don't, because for analog and input and output we don't need to set up them. But anyways, now value we read from the pot pin, analog read, then we map this. See how it works is you map the value which you know is from 0 to 1023 and you need to map it from 0 to 255. So it is linearly mapped to 0 to 255 range, and then that value is written on the LED pin. As simple as that. You have already seen the simulation. I hope it's clear to everyone. Of course, instead of map function, you could have divided it, but map is a convenient way if you don't want to do math. And also, you should know this function. Sometimes it can be helpful. So let's just finish one more LED, and we can do something about serial monitor. Okay, serial monitor should be a new thing. Let's just have a look at one more LED, and then we'll jump to serial monitor. Okay, this will be quick. Serial monitor, with serial monitor the Arduino will be able to interact with your laptop or computer, so you can send data, you can receive data, and basically you can use the processing power of your microcontroller. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate this one project, and then we'll start serial monitor. Okay, is it okay, or are you guys feeling overloaded? But it's my opinion that you got smart, so it should be easy for you. Okay, then let's do some basic serial monitor. Let's at least understand serial monitor. Okay, we have time there. Let's continue. But this is the last LED project. If you have a problem with LED projects, okay. So it's not even a new project. It's basically we are clubbing the previous two projects and trying to incorporate them using a potentiometer. Okay. So what was happening in the previous project was the LED chase effect was happening. You remember the direction one, direction minus one. So the LEDs were going from right to left, then left to right, right to left, left to right. Now this speed of chasing, this we have to control using a potentiometer now. Okay. Now when you use this, there's some issue in Tinkercad due to which this potentiometer, okay, first just see, it's slow right now. Then it becomes faster. There's some issue in Tinkercad due to which after this it directly goes to final value. But in reality this won't happen because a potentiometer is always an analog device, so it moves smooth. We tried everything, but this is, I think there's some issue with their software only because it's not sorting out, and it's not something that happens in a real potentiometer. Apart from that, the program is working fine. Okay. Now let us see when the potentiometer is at the lowest, basically it is returning a high value, not lowest, actually at its highest voltage value. So it's returning a high value which is being used to give a high delay to the chase effect. Okay, let's just have a look at the program. See, the chase part program is the same. We are using an array here, then direction 1 0, current LED is starting from 0. Okay, of course, then there is a potentiometer pin, change time millis. I think these parts we have understood in the previous program, so no need to go through them again. Now values read from the analog pin, analog read from potential pin. then that value is mapped to 0 to 200. Okay, just because it's not necessary. See, you can directly use that value as LED delay, no problem. Then what will happen, your delay will vary from 0 seconds to 1 seconds, approximately 1.023 seconds. But if you don't want that much delay, so you can map it to 0 to 200, so maximum delay will be 200 milliseconds. That's all the point. Apart from that, as you can see, as soon as you have decided the LED delay, okay, from the potentiometer, these two lines are the new lines here. Apart from that, rest of the program is same. You see, change LED function is called, millis is used. Using change LED, the pin is turned, all the pins are turned low, then it is turned high, direction 1, -1. So if you have understood these two things that are happening there, then it's quite clear for you. Okay, and if you want, you can just remove it. You can just write LED delay is equal to value. So what will happen is, yeah, you see the delay increased. That's what. Okay, now we have to, we'll use some projects of serial monitor. Okay, so serial communication, whenever you need to do serial communication, see, because LEDs are what, they are indicators, so they can tell that, okay, some, if the motor is running, you can even switch on the one LED, but they are not so very good indicators. They cannot tell you values, they cannot tell you temperatures. Maybe they can tell you high temperature, low temperature, your water tank is full or half filled or low or empty. But if you want values, or if you want to send values, then you need serial monitor. So serial monitor is a part on the Arduino IDE on your laptop. If you can either take output from the Arduino and print it on the serial monitor, or you can give input also in the serial monitor and use it in the Arduino. Okay, so it happens through the USB cable and also the 0 and 1 digital pins. So if you're using serial communication, at that time you cannot use 0 and 1 digital pins because they will be involved in serial communication. Okay, so for printing, on the serial monitor, the function is quite simple. Of course, you have to first set the baud rate. I hope you remember the baud rate. Baud rate is the bits per second, the data rate at which the serial communication will happen. Sometimes you want it slow, sometimes you want it fast. We'll say see in a project by increasing the baud rate. So for setting the baud rate, we use serial.begin. Generally, we use 9600 bits per second. This is used in void setup, of course. And then for printing on the serial monitor, we use simply serial.print something. And if you use serial.println, then it prints this item and then changes the line. That's it. These two are used for printing on the serial monitor. And if you have to read from the serial monitor, for example, this is your serial monitor and you have to read something. So there is a part in the Arduino which does that. This is called serial buffer. So serial buffer, what it does is that it listens for any incoming data from the serial monitor, and there's a function called serial.available. So what it just does check is whether any data available in the serial monitor from the user. Has the user given any input which is available for taking me as in for taking it in? If it is available, then it will take it in into the microcontroller. So this function is used to just check, has the user given any input or not. I mean, you cannot just do something. You have to wait till if the program needs the user's input or intervention, then we use this kind of a function to just check if the input has come or not. Okay, and then for taking the input, actually there are three functions mainly. Serial dot parse int. If some of you would have some experience in Java, you will find that this function works quite very similar to how we use in Java. Okay, so this takes an integer input from the serial monitor. Then we have serial dot parse float. This takes a floating input, and then we have serial dot read string. So this takes a string input from the serial monitor. Okay, what parse basically does is it takes an input and it converts it into int. But of course, for using it as an int, it must be an integer input in the first place. That is just kind of a typecasting, don't worry. Okay, so using this, let's first try to implement the previous program itself, the potentiometer one. Now what we'll do, we'll, apart from controlling the LED chase speed, we'll also print the potentiometer data on the serial monitor. Okay, you know serial monitor comes very handy sometimes when you're making a project and you want to see that it is working the way you wanted it to work or you thought that it would work. So for that, you can print the values on the serial monitor so you can check. For example, if you're using a, a, a Bluetooth module to send data, okay, and there's some ambiguity in the data which you are getting. Maybe you are connected your Arduino to via Bluetooth to your phone app. There are many apps, and you are trying to get using the Bluetooth module. You are getting that data regularly on your phone, but you are getting some random data which you didn't expect. So while debugging, you will check that first of all, is the same data getting produced by the Arduino, or there is some communication problem, or while communication that data is getting distorted, what is happening? So for that, you will just print it on the serial monitor. So you will know what is the data that is being manufactured or calculated in the Arduino. If that is correct, then this means that during the calculation process only or in the sensor only there is some issue. If that is if that is wrong, then it means that there is some issue in the sensor receiving data or transformation or something like that. If that is correct, it means that up to the hardware level these things are right. In communication, maybe there's some casting error or there's some size trimming is happening, something is happening due to which you are getting wrong values. Okay, now see what changes we are doing here. There's not much exactly, but we have definitely included the serial monitor. So you can see here serial.begin 9600. This sets the baud rate. Okay, these things are same. Then we read the value from analog pin. Then we print it on the serial monitor. See, once you have used serial.begin 9600, the serial communication channel has been opened up. Okay, the serial port is activated. So we do some print statements. We print the value, then we map it to LED delay, then we are printing that value as well. Okay, mapped value, and then rest of the program works just like the LED chase program. Okay, there's nothing new in these parts. Now let's see how it is working. See, the potentiometer reading is 471. It's close to 900. Do you see the value is 900 and the mapped value is 175? If I turn it to ultimate limit, it becomes 1023 and the mapped value is 200. Now, since it is a simulation, you are getting perfect values. But when you do in reality, of course, maybe the potentiometer is not perfect, or there is some internal resistor, or you don't get resistances of same value. So you might not get perfect 1023. You might get 1022 or maybe 1000 also sometimes. So means you can get close values. But I hope you got an idea that continuously the thing is getting printed on the serial monitor. Okay. Also, I like to draw your attention to one thing here. See, in this experiment, when you try to simulate it yourself, you'll observe that even at zero value, you are getting an LED chase effect. Okay, though it is fast, but you can observe it. But in the previous experiment, at zero value, you couldn't observe it. I'll show it to you. 1 second. There's a question for you there. Give me a second. Okay, if you see the simulation here, do you see when I turn it to the fastest value 0, then you can't observe the chase of LED because it has become so fast. Delay is almost 0. Okay, but here you can observe it at 0. Can someone tell me the reason why it is happening? The hint is somewhere in the program. I've closed the serial monitor so that you can have a look. Why can we observe the why are we able to observe it? And the delay is not even 0. You see that it is more than 0. Why is it so? Where is this extra delay coming from? See, the delay is coming because of the serial communication. Even if you have turned the potentiometer to the minimum value, the delay is 0. I mean, the value is 0, but before next time the LED is changed, do you see after in between there are so many serial printing values? Okay, so the serial communication takes time. So there a certain delay happens because the LED will be changed only if these statements have been executed. So this execution takes time. Now if I increase the baud rate, for example, if I make it 115200, then see even at 0 the rate will become faster because the serial communication will become faster. Do you see it has become faster compared to previous? Still there is some delay, but earlier compared to earlier times it has become faster. Now it is more difficult to observe the LED chase. Can you see it? This is because the bits per second being transferred in serial communication, they have become more. Okay, I hope this is clear. If there is some doubt, please ask. So we have learned serial printing on the serial monitor. Now the important part, what makes your Arduino more interactive is taking input from the serial monitor. So for that we use serial.available and serial.parseInt functions. Okay. There are no hardware here. All that we are doing is we have to give an input from the serial monitor. The Arduino will take that input. Not your laptop, but your Arduino's processing power will simply multiply it by 2 and print it back on the serial monitor. So we only need the USB cable here. Okay. Serial.begin, serial.println, please enter the integer. Serial.flush is just used to clear any junk value which might have remained from previous serial communication in the serial buffer, the part of the Arduino which takes input. Generally, it's not like that. That problem is not there, but still for safety, we can give that. Now, while serial.available double equals to 0 means serial.available double equals to 0 means there has been no input. So if there has been no input, just get stuck in this loop so that nothing is done until an input is got. Now, as soon as an input is greater than 0, take that input serial.parseInt, store it in a variable number. Then just first we can, I mean, this is a customization option. You can print the number and then you can print the number multiplied by 2 serial.println. Okay, and then in the end you can ask for another number. Now we'll try to twist this a little bit. Let's see first how it is behaving right now. Please enter integer. If I enter 5, okay, so do you see it is working neatly? It is waiting for me to give an input, and what is making it wait is basically this while loop. Okay, this while loop here. Now in case I remove this while loop, just imagine I remove this while loop. Take a guess what will happen. It will be executed and you will get actually a lot of this. See, because that while loop, what it was doing was it was stopping the execution at that point till an input was received. Now if you don't have that while loop, even if you don't get input, give input, 0 will get printed. Okay, do you see? You entered 0 0 0 0. Now if you give an input, that will change, but only for one value, because again when it goes up, serial dot flush, and obviously that value is released, removed, and yeah, it's gone. What will happen if we remove both while loops? I mean to say, if I remove this while loop, okay, I've already removed one while loop. Now I'm removing this while loop as well. Now what will happen? And if I remove this number equals to 0. Now what will happen is there is no checking whether the user is giving any input or not. Okay. And of course you have to give some default value for the number. So we can shift this number equals to 0 here. Now see what will happen is, we cannot do it there, I guess. See, this is getting printed. If I enter 5, now do you see what is happening? There was no, they are both the loops, while loops are not there, still the program is working. So the reason is that the while loop was just adding extra functionality to the program, so that the output looks more aesthetically good. Okay, but they were not exactly needed. Even if you don't check whether the input is there or not, still you can keep executing the parts and they will go on keep executing. Also, these parts, the print part, were not in the while loop. If they were in the while loop, then they would have gone with the while loop. So that is it.